Hi everyone, I'm Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reviewing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Um, it's the Hunger Game prequel, based on the book written by Suzanne Collins, that she released not too long ago. I think it was like in 2020, and I think they just like started working on the movie too quickly after that. In my opinion, they should have spent more time working on it. I could have waited a few years for that movie. But I guess they were like, hey, like this book that is part of this monumental series that people love or came out. Let's do the movie. I delayed filming this video. I watched it a little while ago, but I delayed filming this video because I did not like it. I'm so excited to watch this movie because I loved the book. And I knew that in prior Hunger Game movies, they stuck so closely to the plot, and only changed a few things, and it worked beautifully because the books are these masterpieces on their own. It had the plot and the characters of the book, but it took out scenes completely that were so important to the storyline, and then we just kind of had to figure out what was happening. And the characters, even though they were the characters, they had completely different personality traits, attitudes, lines, like storylines were changed. It was very confusing, just because I expected something that wasn't at all there. And the story that they created with these new personalities of these characters lacked luster. They felt so one-dimensional. And I think what I loved about this book originally is that these characters had so much substance. Like, there was all these different students and all these different tributes that you had to follow the storyline, and it was complicated to follow those storylines in the book. But in this movie, I feel like they kept up with it. That's the only good thing I feel that they did. But it was so boring to watch at times that I just didn't even really care. I felt that they spent a lot of time in the arena, like showing us what was happening with the characters in the arena and everything. That I felt was done very well. But when we got to the actual classmates and what was going on with Snow, and even after the fact when we left and went with him with the peacekeepers, it just the movie got very choppy, very slow, and very annoying. One of the things that I really loved that the book did was show the complexity and the multi-dimensional being that was Coriolanus. And I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm just saying it how they did in the movies. I couldn't pronounce it in the book either way. He had so many different parts of his character that was this duality within himself. He was this poor individual who lived in the capital, who was trying to make it, trying to seem like he was making it, and that his family was doing okay while they were struggling after the war. And one of the only ones struggling, and he had to act like he had everything together. And he falls in love with this individual who is a problem, in the eyes of the world he lives in, the capital. And also, the districts, they were in war with the capital. That's why his family is they have no money. That's why they're poor. That's why they're doing terribly. That's why they have nothing to eat. That's why he's scavenging for clothing. That's why he's trying so hard to win this prize and be able to help his family pay for their house and be able to get back on top. That's the whole Snow's back on top kind of thing that he keeps talking about with his cousin Tigress. And you know, he's falls in love with this girl who shows him how the districts are being treated, and he sees her suffering. He sees her, going through the tragedy, which is the Hunger Games, and he feels for her because there's this compassionate side to him, because he is poor, because he has had nothing. He has had this tyrant of a father, and this lives in this tyrant of a capital, and there's so many things that they have done to him that have just been so mean and cruel, when he's just trying to survive in the complexity that is this world. And so it kind of tugs at his heartstrings a little bit. But at the same time, he looks at her and he talks to her, and she says things that he doesn't agree with, because of the fact that he's lost so much because of certain things that have happened with where she comes from, and because it goes against things that he has learned growing up, certain values and traits that he has liked, that he has loved, and it's from his world, and it's just this whole confusing thing for him. And then when he loses her in this very sad and kind of brutal way, like, it takes away that part of him. It creates this anger in him. And of course he goes to the only thing he knows, to the only thing that he was trying to succeed in before her. And that's what makes him this bitter person into the President Snow that we end up reading about later on, and in the movie he was much less complex and more. What originally irritated me in the book was the fact that when he talked, it didn't make sense, because he was here, he was there, he was cherry picking. And now I kind of miss that. And I think that the movie tried to kind of make it a little bit more simple. Like, they changed, certain things that he said, and certain things that he did. And it made sense, in some aspects, but it took away from the character that he was, the person that he was, and it took away from the plot and from why we love this version of Snow so much, and why I think the book did well. And so it made me grow to miss and love those parts. And even though it was like, okay, this is easier to understand, it just made me long for that. And it also, just like I said before, it took out whole scenes. It's him with his frustration with the Jabberjays. Like, that was such a pivotal part, I think, in the book, because it showed that he can easily be bothered by things and think, oh, we could just shoot them down. And that shows, like, a lot of his capital side. And in this book, it was just kind of like, oh, they're working with the Jabberjays. Okay. It was the Jabberjays and the Mockingjays that bothered him. He was just annoyed by them. And then there was no reason as to why. They were just working with the birds, and that was it. And it was just like, okay. And the birds go to Dr. Gall, and okay. And how do you even know how to work them? Oh, it's just on and off. Okay. It was so much more complex than that. And I think that's what I really appreciated in the book, that nothing was easy like that, And his mistakes, like, he, in the movie, I think, was portrayed as someone who really knew what he was doing when he was doing it at times. And so when he left his handkerchief in the box with the snakes and everything, you were kind of like, wouldn't you think twice about that? Whereas in the book, there was so much going on. There was so much in his head. He was all over the place. Like, it made sense to me that he didn't notice that. And then in the movie, they presented him as really good friends with Sejamus. I didn't like the book at all. Like, in the book, he just kind of tolerated him. Like, Sejamus was just kind of around, and he would just kind of like, but then his father also has, like, all this money and is giving, like, this prize to the school, and, like, I have to be nice to him, And also, like, he kind of follows me everywhere, and like if I don't correct certain things, people are going to think differently of me. Whereas in the movie, it was like, no, they're best buds, and he betrayed him, which I think kind of made the scene where he died all the much worse. And then we didn't even get to really see it, or we didn't really get to really, like, it just kind of happened, and I was just like, why you do that to us? And it's not even that I liked that they did that. I actually preferred what they did in the book better, just because it worked well in there. And so, like, I don't know. And then the whole reason why they were having students become mentors in the Hunger Games um changed. Like, he um originally, I think in the book, knew about this, and in the movie they were making it seem like this whole big surprise, like, oh no, like they did it last minute, like they're changing things. And I think they try to make it like that kind of moment, but it was just kind of like, it just flowed better in the book. Now looking back at it, there's so many scenes, like I said before, that I was just like, this is a lot of information. Now I'm just kind of like, it worked better. There's a reason why she did this. And the whole thing with, like, the Mockingjays and the Jabberjays, and, Snow being really upset with them, and that showing really his capital side, it just kind of, like, they didn't show it. And then it's also such a key tie to the original series, and nope, didn't matter. And then the whole complex way of, like, turning on the Jabberjays and what they were used for, and like, no, just on and off. Okay, we're recording, we're sending it to Dr. Gauls now. And I'm just like, what? That end scene with the Mockingjays and him shooting up at them and hearing Lucy Gray singing, like, that was okay. The ending, great, awesome, with the hanging tree. And by the way, weren't they like making this huge big deal about, like, the new hanging tree song and how it's going to be such a pivotal thing in this movie and everything? And that one scene only lasted like 5 seconds, and I was just like, what? That end scene was great, and it just kind of needed that anger that he had, and like it was shown on the screen when he was shooting at these things, but like we didn't know really why. We just were like, he's mad at Lucy Gray, but it's like there's so much more than that. It's like this distance that kept coming and coming between them and pushing them further and further apart, because he hates these things and he's feeling anger because he's, feeling certain things because of this girl that he doesn't want to, because he just wants to go back home, and he's frustrated that he's taken away from his home, but then he's also with this girl that he loves who betrayed him. And it's just like, that was this whole big cohesive thing that was just ripped away from us. The whole scene where Sejamus went into the Hunger Games arena, like, and his mom was there and his dad and Dr. Gaul was all involved, and so was like all these different people and everything, and it was such a crucial part in the book. And the mom, we never even like really met the mom. I don't think we did at all in the movie, and she was just like this gateway for Coriolanus, to get in touch with Sejamus's father. I mean, Sejamus is like, friendship was like, one door, but she was like so nice, so sweet. She fed him. Like, the fact that they didn't eat, and the such an emphasis that there was on food in this book, and that wasn't there. Like, it was just kind of like, all right, like, he's doing okay. And I'm just like, there's so many instances where he's not eating. He has to steal food for his girlfriend, and it's just like he's trying to have some for himself and give some to her. And he's the one who initially starts bringing food to her, and then they start bringing food to the tributes and everything. But no, it's the first scene where the girl gets killed, and oh my goodness, she looks so much older than she should have, and she's like graduating high school. She has like these little ponytails, and I'm just like, no. Then the other one, she has like a pantsuit on. I'm just like, what is happening here? And it just kind of was like, okay, we're doing this now. Okay, let's bring food to the tributes. Okay, and then his partner, Coriolanus, his partner, she's like all cocky and everything, and that's not how her character was at all. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna put my hand in the tank with the snakes, and they're not gonna bite me because they I wrote the paper too, and I'm just like. Where before it was like, oh yeah, I wrote the paper, okay, but like obviously she was more of a compassionate person. I think there was more compassionate mentors for sure in the book. Like they were not as cocky. And then at the end where they were like cheering on for Lucy Gray, and saying that she won and Dr. Gall wouldn't let her out, like that was just purely for the movie, like, and for people to be like, yeah, and it's just like, no, this wasn't in the book, and it kind of doesn't work, but okay. And then the whole snake scene wasn't how she won. And then she's singing, and the snakes are like, and it was just kind of like, what? Like, I imagine this moment with just so much more everything, and then in the beginning where she just kind of puts a snake like in the lady's dress and like goes up and she starts, it just nothing felt as grand as it should have, and then things were made to feel grand when they shouldn't have. And the fact that Tigress, she was like, I don't say something, she says something along the lines of, I don't say you look like your father, because your father had this coldness like in his eyes and everything, and you don't, you have compassion in your eyes. And at the end she says, you look like your father, and that shows that he's changed. That I think was really well done. Character I did like though that they kind of changed up a bit was Lucy Gray. She was much more mysterious, much more aware of certain things. There were times when she was a little cringy like the others, but she was like catching on to like Coriolanus whenever he was like lying and stuff and everything, and it was much more apparent, whereas in the book, even at the end, you're just like, how did she figure out? Well, you can see how she figured it out, but at the same time it was just kind of like, why didn't you figure out the rest? And this one I kind of felt like it was piling up and she was kind of coming to terms with it, and so it felt much more real. Also kind of interesting seeing like Lucky like do like the news and stuff and do other things while like we got to see like the in-betweens, like him talking about what was going on in the Hunger Games, but then also doing like his regular job. And we never got to meet Lucy Gray's family and see how much the compact meant to Snow. And then, like I said, everything that happened at District 12 just happened so fast, and that was such a big part of the book. I appreciate that they try to make this simpler for the audience, but it just ended up being very frustrating and it just didn't work out. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the movie. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you all soon. Bye!